Hello, and welcome to another stigmatized property. This very sad story you most likely have heard before. The victims in this story definitely mattered, and their story is important, but it is available on several platforms in book form and multiple media formats. I will briefly retell the story of the crime, but will focus more on the home, the property, and the terrain surrounding it. Brock and Davina Husted and their children lived in Ventura, California, in the Faria Beach area. Ventura is north of Los Angeles and south of Santa Barbara. May 20th, 2009 was springtime. The Husteds lived in what was considered a gated beach community and often left their doors unlocked. That night, the sliding glass door was open, most likely to hear the waves crashing and to feel and smell the sea breeze in their home. At around 10 p.m., Brock and Davina's 9-year-old son was on the couch in the living room. They had just finished watching the American Idol finale. Davina was just steps away in the kitchen, and Brock was in another room. Suddenly, a man wearing a motorcycle helmet with a visor, dressed in all black, walked through their open sliding glass door. The man started yelling. Davina screamed, and Brock came out to see what was going on. The stranger had a gun and ordered the three of them to get on the floor and demanded money. The Husted son got money from his parents' wallets and laid it down at the man's feet. The boy remembered seeing the man's gun lying on the hallway floor. The boy said the man and his parents went down the hall to his parents' bedroom and he heard his parents make the man promise not to hurt the children, and he agreed to it. Before heading to the bedroom, the man grabbed a knife from the Husted's kitchen. The 9-year-old boy hid behind the couch and heard his mother scream a little while later. The man left the way he came through the sliding glass door after knocking over a glass vase that shattered. Then he stumbled into the side of the Husted's hot tub, leaving physical evidence behind. The boy went to check on his parents and saw them lying on their bedroom floor with a large knife near them. He woke up his 11-year-old sister and they both went to their parents' room. They locked themselves in their parents' bathroom before deciding to climb out the bathroom window. Those poor kids, to have to see their parents dead, shelter in the bathroom, then climb out a window and jump down onto the concrete below. For kids that age, that window was pretty high up to get down from. They ran to a neighbor's house and police were called around 10:30 p.m. The house was processed by investigators into the next day. The bodies also remained in the house before being removed the following day. Investigators combed the beach looking for clues. They were trying to determine how the man accessed the neighborhood. At the time, the entrance on Pacific Coast Highway had an electronic gate but was not monitored by a security guard. The houses were tightly packed and concrete walls or fences divided them. The Husted's house was 7 houses away from the Faria Beach campground. There was a wall of rocks, big rocks, that blocked the neighborhood from the campground. But the beach can be accessed by stairs at the campground. The beach itself was rocky, but if the tide was low, there was still plenty of sand to walk on and go undetected in the darkness along the ocean and the backs of the houses that line the beach. Still, there are many rocks as obstacles to trip over in the dark. People at the campground were stunned to see police combing the beach. The campground is a hot spot for whale watching and beautiful ocean views. Some people were longtime residents of the campground. One woman and her husband lived there for 3 years. She said normally her husband is on security detail and walks the grounds around 10 p.m., but didn't that night because it was quiet. The campground doesn't allow visitors after dark, but some campers thought they saw a man walking through the campground holding what looked to be a helmet that night, but didn't really think anything of it until they heard what happened the following day. When police brought a canine with them The scent was tracked from the Husted's house back to Pacific Coast Highway. Neighbors reported hearing at least two motorcycles start up around the time of the crime. Since the homes are tightly packed, police thought if a person was stupid enough to access it from the highway, they would run the risk of being caught on someone's lot, but didn't rule out that possibility. On the opposite side of the neighborhood, there is Mondo's Beach, but it is also surrounded by large rocks, making it hard to access the neighborhood. Police said a lot of the homes are second homes to the residents of the neighborhood, so there were plenty of houses that may have been empty and wondered why a person would choose a home with people in it if robbery was the motive, which led them to believe the attack may have been targeted. The murders would go unsolved for 11 months. In April 2010, DNA found under Brock's fingernails, an oral swab of Davina's mouth, and a towel nearby her body matched a man whose DNA had been entered in the system just a few months ago. Oh, yeah, and the scumbag left his helmet lying on the Husted's bed, so they were able to also get DNA from the visor of the helmet. Detectives also found property from the Husted's home in the suspect's vehicle. The suspect's name was Joshua Packer. He was 19 years old at the time he committed the murders. He worked as a security guard, and employees recalled seeing him the day after the murders showing up looking disheveled. Joshua Packer had been convicted of armed robbery at Thrifty gas station in Santa Barbara. Because it was a felony, his DNA was entered into the database in January 2010, and that is how police were able to tie him to the Husted's crime scene 4 months later in April 2010. The pig's motive was initially robbery, but once he started stabbing, he was aroused and forced himself on Davina before murdering her. She was approximately 5 months pregnant with a boy at the time of her death. Joshua had a long list of criminal offenses ranging from burglary and assault. There were multiple delays because it was going to be a death penalty trial. Ultimately, there was never a trial because he pled guilty in order to get the death penalty removed. February 6, 2015, Joshua Packer was sentenced to 3 life terms with no possibility of parole. Okay, now it's time to get into the history of the property. The house was built in 1979. After that, it was purchased in 1986 for $450,000. March of 2003, the house was listed and sold for over $1.2 million. December 2005, the house was listed for over 2.6 million, and the Husted family bought it in January of 2006 for 2.5 million. The Husteds plan to move to a bigger home with another baby on the way, and on April 8th, 2009, about a month and a half before their deaths, they listed the home for 3.2 million. However, on May 22nd, 2009, 2 days after the murders, the listing was removed. One of Brock's brothers said they tried listing the house after the murders but couldn't sell it, so they let it go into foreclosure. Brock and Davina owned another home 14 miles down the coast in Ventura Keys Marina area. The Ventura Keys home was secluded by trees from the road. The back of their home was the marina where they docked their boat. Both homes were auctioned off by the bank. The Ventura Keys home sold in September 2010 for $955,000, but there were no bids on the Faria Beach home. The address of the Faria Beach home was changed and listed in October 2010 for 1 million. Most likely, it was freshly painted and only needed minimal cosmetic changes. One change was the removal of what looked to be a mounted headboard on the wall of the master bedroom. 2 months after the Faria beach home was listed, it finally sold in December 2010 for the asking price of 1.5 million, which was a million less than what the Husteds paid for it 4 years earlier in 2006. It had been vacant for over a year and a half at the time. The 2010 buyer started renting the property out in 2017 for over $6,000 per month. The last tenant began renting it in June 2020 for $6,500 a month. The owner listed the property for sale after almost 11 years of owning it. August of 2021, the house was listed for $3.9 million. It sold 4 months later in December of 2021 for $3.2 million, $700,000 less than the asking price. As of March 2025, it looks like the new owners continue to rent it to the tenant who rented it in 2020, and the rent is still $6,500 a month. $6,500 a month by California standards for a 3-bedroom oceanfront home with 2 full bathrooms is cheap. I couldn't afford it, but when you look at other rentals in Ventura, it is a dream. Unfortunately, it turned into a nightmare for the Husted family. I hope the children have been able to live as close to a normal life as possible. No kid should ever have to see their parents like that and spend the rest of their lives without them. They never even got to meet their baby brother. I absolutely love how bright and open this home is, and you can whale watch from your own backyard. California beaches are my favorite. The coastline is beautiful and its location is spectacular. Whoever is living there must love soaking up the beauty that surrounds them. I hope they feel nothing but peace in this beautiful beach house. Thank you so much for listening, and I will catch you on the next video.